He is proud, knowing nothing. Paul said, if he doesn't teach these certain things that I've taught you, he's proud. Why? Because he wants to teach his own words. He wants to have his own doctrines and whatever. Paul said he's going to have to teach this, or he is proud, knowing nothing, just playing on words. And I tell you, the charismatics and people who have been apostate from the truth, can they ever play on words? Can they ever make it look good on print? Can they ever make it sound good? No, not to us. We see through it and we understand. But those individuals that stood up there, somewhere in their past, somewhere there was an engine roaring inside of them, 500 horsepower or more. I don't know how many cubic inches was roaring inside of them. Pride. They were driven. They wanted to see. How many of them have said, I want to see the big crowds. We want to win people. And they don't win anybody. There again is an irony. They want to win them when they've lost them. Let them get up and preach one message on holiness, and they wouldn't even have a congregation next week. Wouldn't have anybody. The proud man thinks he knows everything. He is an authority on everything. Paul said he's proud. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know anything at all about questions and strife, and brings out envy and railings and evil surmisings and perverse disputings of men of corrupt minds, destitute of the truth, supposing that gain is godliness. All this, Paul said, he's proud. He doesn't know a thing. But pride assumes everything. There's nothing pride doesn't know. There's no subject that pride will not venture an opinion on. It'll speak about anything instead of saying, I'm sorry, I just don't know. Boy, I'm stumped there. Oh no. Pride's going to comment on anything and everything instead of saying, I don't know. But Paul said he is proud. If he doesn't do what I've taught you, if he doesn't teach these things, he doesn't know a thing. But he sounds like he knows everything. Paul said he doesn't know anything. Doesn't know a thing. What he said. In 1 Timothy chapter 1 and verses 5 and 7. He said, now the end of the commandment is charity out of a pure heart and of a good conscience and of faith unfeigned, from which some, having swerved, have turned aside unto vain jangling, desiring to be teachers of the law. Here's an irony, understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm. Paul said they've turned aside from the right commandment. They've turned aside. You know, when you lose your proper touch with God, you're going to be driven. You know, I know some people just go out and sin, just backslide like the prodigal. Well, okay, we can have some hope for them. He wasn't necessarily a proud man when he came back anyway. He was a broken man. And he said, I will rise and go to my Father. And thank God that he did. And we've seen backsliders do that. But people will be driven to be an authority. But in reality, Paul said here, they don't know what they affirm or what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying. Men of desiring to be teachers of the law, they don't know what they say, and they don't know what they affirm. I tell you, pride will cause a person to get up and spout off and say things, and normal individuals say, well, that sounds kind of dumb. But yet he's just he's as proud as a peacock. He just feels so wonderful and good about himself and what he has to say, and yet people just cringe. You know what can really be the epitome of pride, or I would say the epitome of presumption, would be someone assuming to be called to preach when they're not. They're going to raise havoc. You say, well, maybe they can do a little work. No, they won't do a little work. They'll undo everything that someone else did. And that's one thing that we can appreciate about the independent fellowship. You don't see as much of that, men really not called to preach going into the ministry, as you do within an organization when they can, it's pretty easy to get a license. It is. And that has been one of the banes of our organization, is it uncalled men. Uncalled men. And boy, you get somebody who's not called to preach, but wants to be, and pretty soon he thinks he is. He can get up in this pulpit, and brother, he's just as pleased with what he has to say, and you think, my God, why doesn't he sit down? Someone who is called of God, and someone's anointed of God, and someone an apostle, a prophet, evangelist, pastor, a teacher out there and say, oh, God have mercy, not him again. Because he's not called to preach. And he's going to mess up everything that somebody helped build. He's just going to go in and tear it down, thinking that he's doing God's service. My, he knows nothing. Knows nothing at all. My. There's a great identity with Satan. 1 Timothy again, chapter 3 and verse 6. He's talking about the ministry here. Man desire office, the bishop desires a good work. He says, not a novice, lest being lifted up with pride, he fall into the condemnation of the devil. Now, does this verse infer that when we have passed the novice stage, that we're immune to pride? Someone might get that out of it. Well, I'm not a novice anymore. We're all novices. I've been doing this for 44 years. And I just feel like, and I'm not trying to feign humility, but I think I am just so glad to be in this meeting, to walk in the shadow of these men and to learn something. Just to walk under the shadow of some men who are in this building today is a great privilege. Does this infer that when we pass the novice stage, that we're immune to pride, not being a novice, that's being lifted up with pride? But no, always and ever, we have to cultivate the spirit of humility, and mainly when we subject ourselves to each other. When we subject ourselves to each other, the devil wasn't going to subject himself to anyone. Cain wasn't going to subject himself to anyone. Men who are proud will not subject themselves to anyone. But is it gone? Whatever happened to pride? We don't hear much about it. Maybe it's left our ranks. Maybe we don't have to worry about it. Maybe it's just something that's been eradicated and been preached about enough in years past, and it's all gone now. And it's not here anymore. Don't hear much about it. Don't hear too much about it. Not that we should hear about it all the time. We don't want to be redundant. But pride generates a lot of horsepower. It really does. Pride puts you out of the assumed position into the position to where you don't feel like you're a novice anymore. If you're a real true man of God, a child of God, you're ever and always going to feel like you're a student. You want to be taught. In the book of Philippians, again, the marvelous Apostle Paul, the intellect of his day, a genius probably. Philippians chapter 2, verses 19. Verse 19 through verse 22. Paul said, I trust in the Lord Jesus to send Timotheus shortly unto you, that I also may be of good comfort when I know your state. For I have no man like-minded who will naturally care for your state. For all seek their own, not the things which are Jesus Christ. But you know the proof of him, that as a son with a father, he has served with me in the gospel. Thank God for men who work with a good pastor. They don't have to run off to Bible school. No. And I'm not, there's no premium on ignorance. I tell our kids, why don't you go to secular college and get a degree and get some earning power? You can get a good job, Forget about Bible school. Just, go to the college here and get a good job and be a nurse, a school teacher, a technician, or something like that. Get you an education so you can make a living. So many of them go to Bible school. People who are not called to preach love Bible school. They love it. Oh, they love it. They can join the ministerial association. They can graduate with a degree and automatically get a license. You talk about presumption. My God, someone presuming to be called to preach is the epitome of presumption. Called to lead people and direct people when they don't even know how to follow. But Paul said, I'm going to send Timothy to you. You know his qualification. He said, everybody else seeks their own. Oh my. Not the things which are Jesus Christ's. Paul said, they all seek their own. They want to be lifted up. They want to be something. He said, but, let me paraphrase a little bit, but you know what's kept him on the right track? He labored as a son with a father. Yes, sir. What son would want to outdo his father? What son would want to outdo his mentor? If you have a mentor, and whether it's your father, your grandfather, whoever it is, you will feel in subjection to them ever and always. Men who taught you something wonderful, men who taught you the wonderful love of God and this wonderful message, you will love them ever and always as you worked unto them faithfully. Paul said, you know not the diploma, not the degree of him. He said, but you know the proof of him. What's his proof? What's his credentials? He worked as a son with the Father. Paul said, I can't trust these others. They're in it for themselves. Some of them probably weren't even called to preach. He said, they're in it for themselves, but not Timothy, because he's labored right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Would you like a drink of water, sir? Can I fix you a sandwich, Paul? You need some more ink in the inkwell? You need some more paper? Is the room warm enough? Is it too hot? Well, what can I do for you, Paul? You want me to run out the store and get something for you? Well, that may be an exaggeration, I know. No atmosphere for pride with the son working with his father. No atmosphere because his father say, who do you think you are? Get a little proud. Who could tell him more than dad could tell his son? Hey. Now, I believe Timothy probably needed correction now and then. And when Paul would give it, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. I don't know, sir. That's the way it is in the military. Yeah. Yes, sir. Paul said, yeah, you know the proof of him. He worked with me as a son with the Father. And he said, he's the one I want to send to you because of his sterling attitude, his beautiful spirit. He'll be able to lead you because I know he worked with me. You say, well, what a credential to work with Paul. My, what you would learn. Yes, I imagine. But at the same time, Paul qualified it almost too domestic. He said, as a son with a father. No pride there. Timothy wouldn't want to outdo his mentor. He wouldn't want to outdo his father. And when someone thinks that they're ready to go and they want to outdo dad and they want to outdo their mentor, their pastor, something's driving them. They can use, but I'm called to preach and I just have to go out, and maybe so. But a man's gift will make room for him. Man's gift, my pastor, he taught me, he said, the time comes, don't worry. God will open the doors. And I tell you, when he opens it, oh, it's a breath of fresh air. I've seen people shove the door.